He took a punch every week for 8 seasons. He wrecked more cars than most stunt drivers. And his secretary, she broke barriers Hollywood didn't even know existed. Mannix wasn't just a detective show. It was a revolution wrapped in a suit and tie, filmed at breakneck speed with broken bones and shattered glass. These are 20 weird facts about Mannix. And the bonus? The star's real name was so long the network made him change it twice. Buckle up. This case file gets rough fast. Number 1. Before Mike Connors became Joe Mannix, he was Krikor Ohanian, the son of Armenian immigrants growing up in Fresno, California. His parents fled the genocide, started over with nothing, and raised their son speaking Armenian at home. When young Kreker decided to pursue acting, Hollywood had a problem. The name didn't fit on a marquee. It didn't sound American enough. It wouldn't sell, so the studio forced a change. First, he became Touch Connors, a nickname from his basketball days at UCLA, where his hands were so quick, they called him Touch. He booked westerns, played tough guys, built a career. But when Mannix came calling in 1967, the producers said Touch wasn't right either. Too casual, too strange. So he became Mike. Simple, clean, leading man material. But here's what most fans never knew. During the entire 8-season run of Mannix, Mike Connors kept his Armenian heritage close. He spoke the language on set between takes. He cooked traditional meals for the crew, and in interviews, he never hid where he came from. Joe Mannix was Irish on screen, but the man playing him carried generations of survival, reinvention, and grit in every punch he threw. Hollywood changed his name, but it couldn't change who he was.
Well, what would you say is the best way to run Joe down?
Number 2. Season 1 of Mannix wasn't supposed to look like the show everyone remembers. In 1967, creator Bruce Geller and executive producer Ivan Goff had a vision. Joe Mannix would work for Intertech, a massive detective agency that used computers, surveillance tech, and data analysis to solve crimes. It was cutting edge. It was futuristic. It was supposed to show how technology would change detective work forever. There was just one problem. Audiences hated it. They didn't want a private eye stuck behind a desk, watching screens. They wanted fists, car chases, danger. They wanted Mannix out in the world, not trapped in an office arguing with a computer named CAC. The ratings were decent, but something felt off. CBS noticed. The producers noticed. And Mike Connors, he knew it too. So after 1 season, they made a radical choice. They blew up the entire premise. Mannix quit Intertech. He opened his own one-man detective agency in a small office with a secretary named Peggy Fair. No more computers, no more corporate structure. Just a man, a gun, and a city full of trouble. The retool worked. Season 2 exploded. And the show everyone remembers, that started in Season 2. Because sometimes the best thing you can do with a failing concept is burn it down and start over. Mannix did. And it saved the series. Number 3. Gail Fisher didn't just play Peggy Fair. She made history. In 1968, when Mannix returned for its 2nd season with a new setup, the show needed a secretary for Joe's solo operation. They cast Fisher, an African-American actress with stage training and quiet strength. It didn't seem revolutionary at the time. It was just good casting. But what happened next changed television. Gail Fisher became one of the first black women to play a non-stereotypical, fully realized character on a major network drama. She wasn't a maid. She wasn't comic relief. She was a widow, a mother, a professional with intelligence and dignity, and audiences, both black and white, loved her. In 1970, she won an Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Drama, making her the first African-American woman to win in that category. The victory wasn't just personal, it was a statement. But behind the scenes, Fisher fought battles most viewers never saw. She dealt with hate mail. She faced resistance from affiliates in the South who didn't want to air episodes where she had too much screen time. Some sponsors threatened to pull out, but CBS stood firm, Mike Connors stood firm, and Gail Fisher kept showing up, kept delivering, kept proving that representation wasn't a risk. It was the future. Peggy Fair became the emotional anchor of Mannix, And Gail Fisher, she became a pioneer, whether Hollywood was ready or not. Number 4. Joe Mannix didn't just get beat up, he got destroyed. Week after week, year after year, Mike Connors took more physical punishment than almost any actor in television history. By the time Mannix ended its run in 1975, Connors had been knocked unconscious 55 times on camera, 55 concussions, at least dramatically. He'd been shot, stabbed, drugged, and thrown off buildings. He crashed through windows, tumbled down staircases, and fought in every location imaginable. Alleys, rooftops, warehouses, moving cars. The violence wasn't gratuitous. It was the show's signature. Mannix was a private detective who didn't talk his way out of trouble. He fought through it, and Connors insisted on doing most of his own stunts. He said it made the fights feel real, made the danger land harder, but the cost was brutal. Connors broke bones, tore ligaments, spent weekends in ice baths just to show up Monday ready to film. The crew started keeping count of how many times per episode he got hit. The average was 6. Some episodes pushed double digits. Critics called it excessive, fans called it thrilling, and Mike Connors, he called it the job. Because in his mind, Joe Mannix wasn't a superhero. He was a working detective who bled, who hurt, who kept getting back up anyway. That realism, that physical commitment, it made Mannix feel different from every other detective show on the air, and it nearly killed the star in the process. Number 5. The cars didn't survive either. Over 8 seasons, Mannix destroyed an estimated 100 vehicles. Oldsmobiles, Plymouths, Dodges, Pontiacs, all totaled, flipped, crashed, and burned in the name of television action. General Motors became the show's unofficial sponsor, providing new cars constantly because the old ones kept ending up in junkyards. The stunts weren't CGI. They weren't miniatures. They were real cars with real stunt drivers performing real wrecks at dangerous speeds. And the production budget, it showed. Each smashed vehicle cost thousands. Each chase scene required permits, safety crews, and insurance nobody wanted to calculate. But Mannix kept rolling, because the car chases weren't just action sequences, they were the show's identity. Joe Mannix drove like a man who knew every shortcut, every back alley, every way to shake a tail or catch a killer. And when the bad guys caught up, the cars paid the price. One stunt coordinator later revealed they had a rule on set. If a car survived an episode without major damage, they'd use it again. If it got wrecked, they'd strip it for parts and move on. By season 5, they were going through cars so fast, the studio accountants started asking questions. But CBS never pulled the plug, because audiences tuned in for the fights and the chases. And Mannix delivered both without apology or restraint. Before he became a legend, Bruce Lee was just another actor looking for work. In 1967, he landed a guest spot on Mannix, playing a villain in an episode called Endgame. It wasn't a starring role, it wasn't even a big part, but Lee treated it like an audition for the world. He brought his martial arts precision, his speed, his intensity, and when the cameras rolled, he moved like nobody the crew had ever seen. The fight choreography was basic by Lee's standards, but he elevated it. Every kick landed with snap. Every block felt real. The crew watched in stunned silence. Mike Connors later said it was one of the hardest fights he'd ever filmed because Lee was so fast, so controlled, that it pushed everyone to keep up. The episode aired. Lee moved on. Within a few years, he'd create the Green Hornet, then explode in Hong Kong, then come back to Hollywood as the biggest action star on the planet. But in 1967, he was just a guest villain on a detective show, stealing scenes and showing glimpses of what was coming. Mannix didn't make Bruce Lee famous, but it caught him on the way up. And for fans who go back and watch Endgame, you can see it. The coiled energy, the focus, the moment before everything changed. Even in a throwaway TV role, Bruce Lee couldn't help but be unforgettable. The opening credits changed, but nobody talked about why. In season 1, the Mannix intro was sleek, modern, filled with computer graphics and technological imagery. It matched the Intertech concept. High-tech detective work for a new era. But when season 2 rebooted the show, the credits transformed completely. Now it was pure action. Mannix running, fighting, driving, shooting. Freeze frames, fast cuts, Lalo Schifrin's iconic jazz theme blaring underneath. It looked like a completely different series, because it was. The new opening wasn't just a refresh, it was a message. This wasn't your father's detective show anymore. No computers, no corporate backup, just one man against the world. But here's what most fans never knew. The opening credits were assembled from actual stunt footage shot during production. Those weren't specially filmed sequences. They were real fights, real crashes, real danger pulled from episodes and cut together into pure adrenaline. The editors wanted to show audiences what they were in for, and it worked. That opening became iconic, imitated by dozens of shows that followed. Even today, when people think of 1970s detective television, they hear that theme and see those freeze frames. Mannix didn't just change its credits, it created a template, and it did it by showing exactly what the show was built on: action, violence, and a private eye who never quit. Lalo Schifrin didn't just write a theme song, he wrote an identity. The composer, fresh off creating the Mission Impossible theme, was hired to give Mannix a sound, something bold, something unforgettable. He went into the studio with a small jazz ensemble and recorded the main title in one take: horns blaring, percussion driving, that signature bass line pushing forward like a car chase in musical form. It was perfect. But Schifrin didn't stop there. Over 8 seasons, he composed hundreds of cues, underscores, and variations. Each episode had its own sonic palette. Sometimes it was smooth jazz for nighttime stakeouts. Sometimes it was hard-driving brass for fight scenes. Sometimes it was strings for the rare quiet moments when Mannix actually felt something. The music became as essential as the action. And Schifrin, he treated television like it mattered. He didn't phone it in. He didn't recycle. He brought the same intensity he'd bring to a feature film. Critics noticed. Emmy voters noticed. And fans, they couldn't get that theme out of their heads. Years later, Schifrin admitted Mannix was one of his favorite projects because it gave him freedom to experiment. Television in the late 1960s didn't have rules yet, so he made his own. And in doing so, he created one of the most recognizable scores in TV history. Not bad for a show that almost got canceled after season 1. The violence got so intense, Congress got involved. By 1968, Mannix was one of the most watched shows on television. It was also one of the most violent. Joe Mannix shot people. He got shot. He beat suspects. He crashed cars into crowds. And every week, millions of Americans watched it happen. Some loved it, others were horrified. Parent groups complained, churches wrote letters, and in 1969, the Senate Subcommittee on Juvenile Delinquency held hearings about violence on television. Mannix was named specifically as an example of programming that might be influencing young viewers toward aggression. CBS defended the show. They argued the violence had context. Joe Mannix was a detective in a dangerous world. Bad things happened, but he was always on the side of justice. The fights weren't gratuitous. They were consequences. The committee wasn't convinced. They pushed for content warnings, for time slot changes, for anything to limit children's exposure. But Mannix kept airing, kept fighting, kept pulling ratings. Because audiences understood something the politicians didn't. The violence wasn't the point, the resilience was. Joe Mannix got knocked down every episode, and every episode, he got back up. That was the message, not the punches, the refusal to quit. Still, the controversy stuck. For years, Mannix was held up as proof that television had gone too far. But the show never apologized, never softened. It just kept throwing Joe Mannix into danger and letting him fight his way out. Most detective shows of the era were shot on backlots. Mannix went out into the world. Los Angeles wasn't just a setting, it was a character. The show filmed on location constantly. Real streets, real buildings, real neighborhoods that audiences recognized. Downtown Los Angeles, the docks, Griffith Park, Chinatown, Beverly Hills. Skid Row. The camera captured a city in transition, a place where old Hollywood glamour crashed into urban decay and violence. And Joe Mannix, he moved through it all, like a man who knew every corner. The location shooting wasn't cheap. It required permits, security, and schedules that had to work around traffic and weather. But the producers insisted. They wanted Mannix to feel real, not stagey, not fake, and it paid off. When Joe Mannix climbed into his car and drove through the city, you believed it. When he chased a suspect down an alley, you knew that alley existed. The show became an accidental time capsule. Watching Mannix now, you see Los Angeles as it was in the late 1960s and early 1970s. The architecture, the fashion, the cars, the mood. It's all there, preserved in celluloid because the producers refused to take the easy route. They could have shot everything on the Paramount lot. Instead, they turned the city into a studio, and Mannix became one of the most visually authentic detective shows of its era. Mike Connors wasn't just acting when he drove those cars. He was a legitimate gearhead who'd been racing since his college days. Long before Mannix, Connors spent weekends at racetracks, pushing vehicles to their limits for fun. So when the show required high-speed chases, he didn't need a stunt double for most of it. He took the wheel himself. The insurance company hated it. The producers loved it. And the stunt coordinators, they worked overtime making sure the star didn't kill himself on camera. Connors later admitted he came close several times. One chase through downtown LA nearly ended with him T-boning a city bus. Another time, his brakes failed mid-stunt and he had to use a guardrail to stop, but he kept driving. Because for Connors, the danger was part of the appeal. He said it kept him honest, kept him present, kept every scene feeling real. Critics noticed. They wrote about how Mannix's car chases felt different from other shows. Faster, tighter, more visceral. That's because they were. No rear projection, no obvious doubles. Just Mike Connors white-knuckling a steering wheel at 60 miles per hour through real traffic. The show made him a star, but the cars, they made him feel alive. Mannix wasn't supposed to last past season 3. By 1970, CBS was cleaning house. They wanted younger audiences, hipper programming, shows that felt modern. The network canceled rural comedies, traditional westerns, anything that skewed older. Mannix was on the chopping block. The ratings were solid, but not spectacular. The violence controversy lingered. And CBS executives thought maybe it was time to move on. Then something unexpected happened. The audience revolted. Letters poured in by the thousands. Fans organized write-in campaigns. They called the network, they threatened boycotts, and the message was clear. Cancel Mannix, and we're done with CBS. The network panicked. They'd underestimated how loyal the fan base was. These weren't casual viewers. They were invested. They tuned in every week. They bought the sponsors' products, and they weren't going quietly. So CBS reversed course. Mannix got renewed. Not just for one more season, but for 5 more. The show ran until 1975, outlasting most of the hip programming that was supposed to replace it. Because here's what the network learned. Audiences don't always want what's trendy. Sometimes they just want a good detective who takes a beating and keeps going. Mannix proved that loyalty mattered more than demographics. Behind every episode was a murder board that looked like evidence from a real crime. The writers didn't just script episodes. They built entire cases, victim profiles, suspect lists, timelines, physical evidence. They'd pin it all to a massive corkboard in the writer's room and work through the mystery like actual detectives. Some storylines took weeks to crack. They'd argue about motives, debate whether clues made sense, test whether Joe Mannix would realistically solve it. The attention to detail was obsessive, and it showed on screen. Mannix episodes didn't feel like typical TV mysteries, where the solution was obvious by Act 2. They twisted, they surprised. They played fair with the audience while still delivering satisfying reveals. One writer later admitted they consulted with real LAPD detectives to make sure the cases felt authentic. They'd bring in cops, walk them through the storylines, ask what a real private investigator would do. Sometimes the detectives would laugh and say it was impossible. Other times they'd nod and suggest tweaks that made it better. The collaboration gave Mannix credibility other detective shows lacked. When Joe Mannix solved a case, it felt earned, not lucky, not convenient. Earned through legwork, intuition, and occasionally getting his face smashed in until the truth revealed itself. The show's most famous prop wasn't a gun, it was a telephone. Joe Mannix had a car phone installed in his Oldsmobile Toronado, a cutting-edge piece of technology in 1968 that cost more than most people's annual salary. On screen, it looked sleek and modern. Mannix could call Peggy while chasing suspects, check in from surveillance, coordinate without leaving his vehicle. Audiences were fascinated. This was the future, except the prop barely worked. The production team built a fake car phone that looked real but required a crew member hiding in the back seat with a walkie-talkie, feeding Connors his lines through an earpiece while the actor pretended to talk on the handset. The setup was absurd, cramped, hot, and it broke constantly. But it created an iconic image. Joe Mannix in his car, phone to his ear, looking like the most connected detective in Los Angeles. Years later, when cell phones became common, fans remembered Mannix had one first. Technically, he didn't, but television made it feel real, and sometimes that's what matters. The show understood that props tell stories. A car phone said Joe Mannix was ahead of his time. Even if the technology was all smoke and mirrors, the image stuck. Halfway through season 4, Mike Connors collapsed on set. Not from a stunt, from exhaustion. The shooting schedule was brutal, 5-day weeks, 12-hour days, and Connors was in nearly every scene. He'd show up Monday covered in bruises from Friday's fight scenes and do it all over again. His body gave out. Doctors ordered 2 weeks of rest. The production shut down. CBS panicked. They had episodes to deliver, a schedule to maintain, and their star was in a hospital bed, unable to move. The producers scrambled. They rewrote upcoming scripts to feature Peggy Fair more prominently. They brought in guest stars to carry B-plots. They shot around Connors, using stand-ins and tight editing. But it wasn't the same. When Connors finally returned, he looked thinner, tired, older. The network considered scaling back the violence, giving him fewer stunts, protecting their investment. Connors refused. He said if they softened Mannix, they'd kill the show. So they compromised. More stunt doubles for the dangerous stuff. More breaks between fight scenes. A slightly lighter schedule. It helped. But only slightly. Because Mike Connors understood something the network didn't. Mannix only worked if he looked like he'd been through hell. And that meant going through hell himself. Week after week. Year after year. The show's most controversial episode never aired in several southern states. A Step in Time featured Joe Mannix investigating the murder of a civil rights worker in a small town. It dealt with racism directly, showing Klan imagery, police corruption, and violence against black citizens. CBS knew it would be explosive. They filmed it anyway. When the episode was ready, several affiliates refused to broadcast it. They said it was too political, too inflammatory, too risky. Some stations preempted it with old movies, others ran reruns. But in markets that did air it, the response was overwhelming. The episode drew the highest ratings of the season. Critics praised its courage, and Gail Fisher, watching Mannix tackle civil rights while she sat at the center of her own quiet revolution, felt vindicated. The show wasn't just entertaining, it was saying something. Not every week, not in every episode, but when it mattered, Mannix took a stand. The network never ordered another episode quite like it. The controversy was too intense, the backlash too severe, but they kept A Step in Time in syndication. And decades later, it's remembered as one of the series' finest moments. Because sometimes television has to be uncomfortable. Sometimes it has to push boundaries. And Mannix, for all its action and violence, understood that. The cast developed their own pre-fight ritual. Before any major stunt sequence, Mike Connors and the stunt team would gather in a circle, go over the choreography one final time, then tap each other's shoulders twice, once for luck, once for safety. It started as a joke during season 2 and became sacred by season 8. Nobody filmed a fight without it. The ritual served a purpose beyond superstition. It forced everyone to slow down, focus, remember that what they were about to do was genuinely dangerous. Real punches would be thrown, even if pulled. Real bodies would hit real floors. Real glass would shatter. The shoulder taps were a reminder. We trust each other. Over 8 seasons, the Mannix stunt team suffered broken bones, concussions, cuts that required stitches, burns, sprains, and one near drowning during a dock fight that went wrong. But nobody died. Nobody got permanently injured, and the crew credited the ritual because those 2 taps meant something. They meant, we're professionals, we're prepared. We'll get through this together. When the series ended and the cast scattered, they kept doing it. Connors would tap his shoulder twice before film auditions. Stunt performers would do it before other jobs. The Mannix ritual became industry legend, a small moment that meant everything. The series finale wasn't emotional, it was defiant. After 8 seasons, 194 episodes, and countless beatings, the producers could have sent Joe Mannix off into retirement, a quiet ending, a reflective final case. Instead, they threw him into one last brutal fight. He got shot, he got punched, he bled. And in the final moments, as Mannix limped back to his office, battered but alive, he answered the phone. Another case, another client, another problem, and he said yes. Cut to black. No goodbye, no closure, no indication the show was ending. Because in the world of Mannix, there was always another case. The fight never stopped. Fans were divided. Some wanted resolution. Others appreciated the honesty. Joe Mannix wasn't the type to ride off into the sunset. He'd keep working until his body gave out. The finale understood that. Mike Connors later said it was the only ending that made sense. After everything they'd put his character through, anything sentimental would have felt false. Better to end with Mannix doing what he did best, picking up the phone and getting back to work. The series ended, but Joe Mannix never quit, and that perfect contradiction became the show's lasting statement. Long after the show ended, Mike Connors kept getting recognized, not as an actor, as Mannix. People would stop him in airports, restaurants, parking lots. They'd call him Joe. They'd ask if he was working on a case. Some would apologize for bothering him, but then launch into stories about watching the show with their fathers, their brothers, their families. Connors never corrected them. He'd smile, shake hands, pose for photos, because he understood that Joe Mannix meant something to people. The character represented resilience, getting knocked down and getting back up, fighting through pain to find truth. That resonated across generations. Years later, when Connors was asked about his legacy, he didn't talk about awards or accolades. He talked about those encounters, the people who told him Mannix got them through hard times. Veterans who said the show helped them process coming home from Vietnam. Kids who watched with their parents and learned what integrity looked like. To Connors, that was worth more than any Emmy. He'd played a character who absorbed punishment week after week and never quit. And somehow, that simple idea transcended entertainment. It became something people carried with them. A reminder that toughness isn't about never falling. It's about always getting back up. The show's final cost was calculated years later. 194 episodes, 8 seasons, and Mike Connors had absorbed 55 on-screen concussions, been shot 17 times, stabbed 4 times, drugged 11 times, and beaten unconscious more times than anyone bothered counting. He'd destroyed 100 cars. He'd performed thousands of stunts. He'd worked through broken bones, torn ligaments, cuts, bruises, exhaustion, and pain that would have hospitalized most actors. The physical toll wasn't theoretical. It was documented in medical records, insurance claims, and Connors' own body. By the time the series wrapped, he moved differently, slower, stiffer. The years of punishment had accumulated, but he never regretted it. In interviews, Connors said Mannix was the role of his lifetime, not because it was easy, because it demanded everything. He'd helped create a character that defined an era of television, a detective who wasn't smooth or clever or lucky. He was just relentless, and that came from somewhere real. From Mike Connors' willingness to put his body on the line every week for 8 years, the show made him a star. But it also left scars that never fully healed, some visible, others not. The price of being Mannix. After 8 seasons, one prop survived. Joe Mannix's desk, the one he sat behind in his small office, answering phones and filing reports between beatings. When the show wrapped, Mike Connors asked if he could keep it. The studio said yes. He had it shipped to his home, placed it in his study, and used it for the rest of his life. Whenever he wrote letters, paid bills, or worked on scripts, he sat at Joe Mannix's desk. Friends who visited would notice it and ask. Connors would smile and say, "It reminds me of the work, not the fame, not the money, the work, the daily grind of showing up and doing the job." That desk saw more scripts than any prop master intended. It became part of Connor's life beyond the character. And when he passed away in 2017, that desk was still there. A piece of television history that had become something more personal. Because Mannix wasn't just a role Mike Connors played. It was something he carried with him. Every scar, every memory. Every morning he sat down at that desk and remembered what it meant to be a man who never quit.